So, the script for the Profit Taker video has a couple of small issues with it that I couldn't really figure out a good way around. You see, there are actually 3 small tricks that are very important to know for that fight, but aren't actually limited to the boss itself and haven't been spoken of on this channel yet. In addition, there's one major reward that you can get from the Profit Taker missions that benefits Limbo players quite a bit once they understand how to use it, but doesn't actually help in any significant way during the boss fight itself. So that's why I've decided to split this episode off onto its own thing, and give you guys a special Profit Taker edition of my Limbo Combat Tricks series. I hope you guys enjoy the video, and, well, let's begin. By talking about something that seriously should have been included in the first of these videos. You can revive people from the rift. This is actually something that's been shown in my videos a few times, but I've never actually said it, so here it is. Anytime you're in the void, you can revive teammates and NPCs, as well as capture enemies and even send wildlife to the business without ever needing to step out of your rift and expose yourself to any dangers. This sort of thing isn't super important, at least in the current game, as operators can actually do all the same things with their void mode, but as those little guys are slower at base than your Warframe and do have a time limit on their stealth, it is still somewhat ideal to revive with Limbo instead, and considering how much damage the boss does, there's a good chance you'll have to revive someone or their pets during this fight. And there's another major thing you can do in the Rift that's actually really nice when messing with Spider-Mom. You can summon your Arcwing weapon straight to the void. Yeah, the animation for summoning these things is pretty awful, and very likely to get you killed if the enemies can actually hit you, but Limbo players can just slip into the Rift whenever they want to summon their guns, and so not have to worry much about that issue. This is really useful, and you should basically always be doing this anytime you want to pull out any of your heavy weapons. This also works with basically anything else that can be used from your gear wheel, including the various specters, K-drives, and all of the restoration items, and they will all have their full effect on you, your allies, and your enemies regardless of whether you summon them from the Rift or not. The only things that I'm aware of that have any issues are the various gear weapons like fishing rods and such, which you can summon in the Rift but don't actually have any effect, and your Arcwing launcher, which will immediately kick you out of the Rift once you get into your Arcwing. Other than that, everything works just fine. Now, the third trick that's likely to be useful with the Profit Taker is actually not something that you require Limbo for, but rather something that you want to abuse on him thanks to certain mechanics. You see, your operator is always outside of the Rift. You cannot send him there in any way, and you can swap to your operator without forcing Limbo himself to leave the Rift. And this has a few interesting applications. For one, he can still passively gain energy from the Rift while you're running around in operator form. But more importantly, because you can just swap to the operator to deal with things outside the Rift, you actually don't have to roll or drop a Cataclysm to destroy something that's Rift immune or not too tanky. If you need to break something that's outside the Rift, like say one of those Corpus Alert items or an Arbitration drone, you can just swap to your operator, nuke it down in 1 or 2 shots, and then jump right back into your Warframe. The thing will be destroyed, and you won't have been forced to drop your stasis bubble or waste Rolling Guard's cooldown just to deal with a quick little nuisance. And while that is the last of the tricks that I want to talk about actually using against the Profit Taker, there is a very nice item that you can get from the faction that's based around her that I highly suggest you pick up thanks to how useful it is for Limbo in most other missions. Magus Anomaly. For those who don't know, this is one of the new operator arcanes that you can get from Little Duck, and it drags all enemies within a certain radius towards you when you swap from your operator to your Warframe. And yes, it can be used from inside of a stasis cataclysm. You can seriously just press your operator summon key twice to safely drag a bunch of enemies right into your cataclysm, and they'll be clustered up, frozen, and ready for you to nuke down without exposing Limbo to any danger or proccing Rolling Guard's cooldown. I personally think it's probably the most generally useful of the operator arcanes for Limbo, and while Magus Elevate is undeniably better for boss fights, I highly suggest you test out Magus Anomaly once you get the chance. Anyways, that was the last thing I have to say about the Profit Taker and the items around her. I had originally planned on having this episode be part of the last video, but since all of this was stuff that's useful for so much more than just her, I felt it was better to split it off onto its own episode. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you learned anything, leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you later. Farewell.